DIY video with you guys, and I'm going to show you how I refinished an old antique chair that I have purchased, and I repainted the upholstery. Yes, you heard me right, I painted the upholstery, and I also refinished the wood on the chair. So this chair, just to kind of give you guys, I guess, some background information, this chair was like my nightmare. This was the chair from hell. So let's just start with the story of this chair. So I purchased this chair from an elderly couple online, and the pictures that they had posted of it were not accurate, to say the least. So I'll go ahead and insert a picture of what the chair looked like, or what I thought the chair looked like, I should say. The picture that they posted, as you can see, it looked to me as like a hot pink upholstery. So I like the shape and the style of the chair, and I loved the hot pink upholstery, so I thought that would look so cute in Chloe's room. And I was planning to just refinish the wood and really, you know, make that hot pink upholstery pop, because I thought that would be a really awesome focal piece in Chloe's room. And the elderly couple that I purchased it from actually delivered it to me. So when they showed up at my door, I opened the door and saw the chair, and I'll go ahead and show you a picture of the chair that they brought. And it was this burgundy color. I mean, I don't know how else to describe it. It was kind of just a burgundy color, and nothing in my house is that burgundy color. I wasn't a huge fan of it, but at this point, I mean, these elderly people came and they delivered it. They drove to my house. The old man brought it up to my doorstep, and I felt so terrible because he's like, oh, I just had knee replacement surgery that long ago, I shouldn't be lifting. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's okay, leave it right there. I can have my husband bring it in, or I can bring it in. Don't worry about it. I don't want you to get hurt. Like, I felt terrible, so I couldn't tell them no. I couldn't say, oh, well, actually, you know, this isn't the chair that I thought it was, so, you know, never mind, no sale. So I kind of was like obligated to buy it at this point, and I was really bummed out and disappointed. I was like, oh, what am I gonna do with this chair? Like, I have this chair that I kind of don't really like at all, and where do I start? I keep glancing over to the side because the chair is right there, so I'm looking at it. It's like my nightmare chair, I swear. It's gonna haunt me. So I'll go ahead and show you guys how I repainted the upholstery, and then I'll kind of tell you what happened with the rest of the chair. So to paint the upholstery, I'm going to mix my DIY brand paint. Now, this is a clay-based paint. I'm not a fan of chalk paints. This is actually clay-based instead of chalk-based. So we're going to mix this paint with water. So it's going to be 1 part paint to 3 parts water. I'm going to mix 1/4 cup of the DIY paint, and this is in the color Bohemian Blue, and mix it with water. 1/4 cup of paint and 3/4 cup of water, so 1-to-3 mixing ratio. I'm gonna go ahead and mix that up in here, and then I will go ahead and get started. Okay, so by mixing the paint with the water, essentially what we're doing is we're making a fabric dye. So I watered the paint down, and I'm going to use it to dye the fabric, the upholstery, to a blue color, or a more attractive color that I want. I'm not going to worry about the wood at this point. I'm not going to tape it off or anything, because I am going to refinish this. Like I said, I'm going to sand it down. So I just have a towel handy. If I do happen to get a little paint on it, I'll just wipe it off. It's not going to be a big deal for me. So before I start, I'm going to use my sanding block. Once we put the paint on, we're going to use our sanding block to really work the paint in so we get a nice even coat. And you're also going to need a water bottle full of water, because in order to actually start painting, we're going to want to wet the fabric. So I'm going to go ahead and start misting down my fabric. And you want it, I mean, pretty wet here. We're not really misting, we're getting pretty wet. And I did put gloves on just because I was already starting to get messy and I don't want to get too messy. My neighbors are probably like, this girl is crazy, she's talking to herself. Okay, so I misted down this little area here, so I am going to head and start painting. Make sure it's really mixed well. Oops, I'm splashing it, making a giant mess. And then we're just gonna brush it on. Really want to make sure we are working the paint into the fabric. It's best to use a stiff bristle brush. Ooh, I'm splattering it everywhere. Make sure you're really getting into the crevices. I'm just going to pull back the fabric here. I don't know if you can see that. And stick my brush back in there to make sure you get all the little nooks and crannies. And as with any paint job, it's better to do light coats, multiple light coats, than to really, go in there with a heavy hand. So I'm just kind of working my paint into the fabric, and then I'm going to go ahead and use my sanding block to really make sure I've saturated every little fiber in this fabric here. Go ahead and wipe off the paint I got all over the wood. And because it's nice, because it is so watered down, this paint's just gonna, wipe off of this wood surface. Since it is sealed, I haven't touched it. It'll just easily wipe off. But as I said, I plan on sanding all this down anyway, so. Okay. Wipe off these little nail head decals. Now let's get, oops, I got an inch. I'm gonna be covered in paint. I'm gonna get my sanding block and then just really come in here and work it in. So here is the one section that we've already done. It's kind of turned now a purpley color. This is the fabric that we are starting with. And this is after one coat. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish painting the rest of the chair. Okay, so here is my chair after the first coat of paint. You can see some of the fabric still showing through. I'm gonna go ahead and let this coat dry, and then I'm gonna do a second coat. Okay, so here is, I guess, day 2. We're on day 2 now, but this chair's been drying for, it took a while actually for this to dry. It's been drying for 2 days. Yeah, I think it's been drying 2 days. It took a while to dry because I saturated it with the water and the paint. So if you're planning on doing this to your furniture, bear in mind it might take a while to dry. But this is what the fabric looks like after one coat. I went ahead and mixed up the paint, same ratio, 1-to-3 ratio. So 1/4 cup of paint to 3/4 cup of water. And the upholstery actually kind of looks like a purple color. It's kind of pretty, but if you can see, like in some spots, like down here, I can kind of see that burgundy poking through, and especially all around these button tufts here. I can see that burgundy really poking through. So I'm gonna go ahead and start on my second coat, but before I do, I'm gonna take my sanding block and then just sand the fabric. I know this kind of sounds weird, but this is gonna help keep the fabric soft so you have that nice soft fabric-like texture. If you just went in without sanding it, that's when you get that hard kind of, you know, obviously painted furniture. I've seen even in shops people trying to sell furniture that they've painted and they just have done a crappy job and they're selling it, you know, for a lot of money. And I don't know, you have to do your research and you have to know, I guess, what you're doing before you just jump into it. So make sure you're using the right kind of paint. Like I said, I used a clay-based paint. That's important. Don't use a latex paint. I mean, technically you, I guess, you could do whatever you want, but if you use a latex-based paint, keep in mind that your furniture is gonna feel like latex. It's gonna feel very rubbery. You're not gonna have that soft material fabric feel anymore. So by using this clay-based paint, I still keep the integrity of the fabric, I keep the softness and the texture. It still has all the same texture in it. So that's why it's important to sand. Because that's gonna help rough it up, get it ready for the next coat. You're gonna get a nice even application. And it's gonna keep it looking nice. So I'm just gonna go in with my spray bottle. Like I showed before, same technique, same paint ratio. And we're just gonna apply a second coat. Okay, so here is the chair. This is after 3 coats of paint on the upholstery, and I have started to sand the wood. So the upholstery is finished and dried, and it's still really soft to the touch, but now I am going to start sanding the wood so I can refinish that. If you can see on the left-hand side, I've already started sanding all through the top and the left side, and then the right is still unsanded. You can see some of the blue paint on the right side there on the wood. So I'm just gonna go ahead and get my sander and start sanding all of that off. Some of the fine detail areas where my sander won't fit, I'm gonna have to hand sand, but I'm gonna start doing that now. Upholstery, that was like the easiest part of this whole chair makeover. If you guys are watching this video just for the upholstery painting part, then go ahead and click out, because that was it. Like, that was the extent of it. It was actually really easy, and the hardest part of painting the upholstery was just waiting for the coats to dry in between. That was it. Refinishing the wood on this chair, oh my goodness, that is where my headaches began, let me tell you what. So I believe the wood on this chair is walnut. I'm not positive, but from what I can tell, it looks like walnut. It's solid wood, the whole thing is solid. The bones of this chair are great. Even the upholstery is actually in really, really awesome condition for the age of this chair. But I was going for kind of like more of a driftwood finish. Chloe's gonna come say hi. Say hi. Yeah, say hi. The finish that I was going for is kind of hard to describe. When I try to describe it to people, they're like, what, huh? But I was going for kind of like an old weathered vintage wood, like barnwood or driftwood, kind of old and weathered, matte looking. I wanted you to see the wood grain and keep that dark kind of texture that the wood grain has in it, but tone down the wood, the actual wood color. And that turned out to be near impossible on this chair. I don't even think I filmed any of this part because I was just so upset and so like distraught over this whole process. It was literally like my nightmare. I don't know how else to describe it, but it was a nightmare. So I took my electric handheld sander over the whole thing with 120 grit sandpaper, and I just wanted to kind of knock off that original finish and that shine that it had. And once I did that, I was so excited because that was almost perfect of the finish that I wanted. It was still a little bit too yellow, like a golden color. The wood was naturally just like a real golden color. So I wanted it to be more of a gray and, like I said, just really have that wood grain kind of show out. So my mistake was that I was using a natural colored wax. So what natural colored wax does is bring back the natural color of the wood. And you know, that was me being stupid, not paying attention, and that's what I had on hand, so that's what I used. But so I learned my lesson on that, and you know, that kind of just took me right back to square one of where I started, and I was just so like beyond at this point. I was sick of this chair. So the way that I finished the chair is I decided to just do a gray wash on it because that would kind of tone down that yellow golden wood color that I was just trying so hard to get rid of. The whole point of refinishing the wood was I wanted the wood grain to show. My husband keeps telling me that I need to just paint it solid gray. He's like, oh, it's gonna look so awesome if you just repaint it solid gray. And I refuse, like I won't do it. I am so stubborn because this chair, I love the natural wood grain in it. Like the wood grain gives it character, and I did not want to cover that up. So that's why I decided to go with a gray wash. So to do the gray wash, I actually went to my go-to favorite brand of paint, which is General Finishes, and I watered the paint down, same ratio I did with the Upholstery, a 2-to-1 ratio, and just kind of painted it on and got a rag and wiped it off. I did about 2 coats on the entire chair. I painted it on, let it sit for like 30 seconds, not very long at all, and I took an old rag and I just wiped it off. So if you guys would like to see more DIY videos from me, just hit the thumbs up button down below so I know. And also don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss out on any future videos that I post. And until next time, thank you guys so much for watching. Bye!